And now for something completely different.
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the podcast with news and views from a distinctly conservative atheist perspective, with your hosts, Cephas and Out West. We hope we can entertain, educate, and perhaps even enrage you. Now let's begin this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Hello, and welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the podcast where atheism and conservatism collide. I'm Cephas, and this is Out West.
Hi, I'm Out West. Glad to see you're here tonight, and hope you have a great time listening to us talking about issues of the day.
Yeah, we happen to be true conservatives who also happen to be outspoken atheists. Every week, we discuss topics of interest, ranging from religion to politics and everything in between. We hope you'll join us every Friday, and please, we invite you to interact with us and tell your friends.
And now for the news.
Following the rape and murder of a 5-year-old Saudi child, a Muslim cleric has come out and declared that the best way to stop child molestation, even for infants, is to force them to wear full-body baby burqas. No, the best way to stop child molestation or rape of young women in Muslim countries is to stop your men from thinking it's not their fault if they're sexually attracted to young girls or babies. This is just another attempt by a male-dominated religion to place the blame for your own indiscretions on others, even to the point of blaming victims for the horrors of pedophiles. So what do you think?
Well, what are they going to do? Are they going to say that every 5-year-old girl has to wear a burqa? I mean, that just targets them, doesn't it? Think about it. You're in a dress or whatever they are in, and I actually know what they're in Saudi Arabia, but they go out in a burqa. Okay, well, that's a little young woman, so that means they can be snatched up off the street and done whatever. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's horrible to think that they're excusing the actions of pedophiles, of rapists, etc., and saying, well, it's the fault of the woman. And we're talking about babies. We're talking about
3 to 5-year-olds.
Not even that. A week-old baby, if some creep comes along and molests this kid, it's the baby's fault.
Yeah.
What the hell?
And how can that be? That a woman is carrying around her... Think about this in the United States, Cephas. If a woman is carrying around her child, or walking her child, or a man, because men do that as well, as we know, a 3 to 5-year-old, and that child is snatched out of his or her hand, is a burqa going to change that?
Of course not.
No. That's just stupid. I mean, and that's the whole stupidity, as far as I'm concerned, of religion in general, is that these people think that, well, if we only do these certain things, then rape will never occur. Molestation will never occur. I'm sorry, there's bad people out there. There's bad people out there. There's always going to be bad people out there.
Yeah.
And what do we do about that? What do we do about that?
Well, the problem is their position has always been the reason they want to put women in burqas because they're contending that women are tempting men with their bodies, that it's the woman who is out there actively trying to tempt these men into doing something. Are they actually saying that a 5-year-old child is tempting men to come and rape it?
Well, you remember that the prophet, Muhammad, married a 9-year-old. A 9-year-old.
Well, married a 7-year-old, had sex with a 9-year-old.
Okay. Thank you for correcting that. But still, had sex with a 9-year-old. Now, again, we have to look back into history. Today, that's of course abhorrent. But in those times, in the 7th century, when Muhammad lived and others lived, because I'm sure others did that as well.
Well, that was the norm back then.
That was the norm. I mean, think about, let's go back to mythology. Solomon, who had 700 and something concubines, mythology.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament. How did he service? Think about that. How did he service all those women in a year?
Oh, I'm sure he didn't.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to go back that far. I mean, if you just go back a couple hundred years to, early in the United States, the average age to get married was 13 to 14. So, today that would never, ever fly.
Oh, no. It does fly because the average age, because I lived in Utah The average age is 15.
Yeah. Well, if you go, I think Rhode Island still has it on the books that with a parent's permission, you can get married as young as 13. But, today, for the most part, for most normal people, that would never be acceptable.
Oh, of course. I mean, I have a 7-year-old. You have a 13, 14-year-old?
I got 14 and 16.
Okay. What are you going to do when some dude comes up and says, hey, I'm going to marry your daughter, some 40-year-old, because Muhammad was in his 40s, I think, when he, quote-unquote, married that 7-year-old. What are you going to do? You know what I'm going to do? Never mind.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's not going to happen. But,
yeah. But it does happen in the States. It does happen.
Oh, sure.
When a younger guy, like say a 21-year-old, is dating a 16 or 17-year-old, just barely legal, if not, depending on the state, by the way, what legality is.
Yeah.
It does matter, and so I don't know what the laws are in California. What is the legal age?
Probably 18.
I don't think so.
I mean, to be able to get married on your own.
To get married on your
parental
own.
permission.
But not to be.
I'm sure it's like 16.
I'm talking statutory rape.
Oh, I haven't got a clue.
Okay, but still, I mean, this is awful. This is an awful thing.
Well,
that these people, again, they're living in the 7th and 8th century. It's an awful thing.
Well, this is one thing that really kind of pisses me off, that a lot of atheists will run around and go, haha, see, Muhammad was a pedophile, blah, 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 blah. Well, at the time that he lived, he wasn't. He was perfectly normal. Most men did marry young children like that. That was acceptable. It's not acceptable today. You cannot hold people who lived in the 13th century to the same rules that we have today.
Even in the Middle Ages, it was common.
Oh, it's common, been throughout history. It's only recently that it's
in the Middle Ages in Europe, it was common for a nobleman to give his 12 or 13-year-old or daughter away to a young knight who was special to him. Now, did they have sex? I don't know, but
I'm sure they did.
But it was common. And think about it. Let's go back way, way, way back in mythology to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Okay. Now, I have talked to several pastors that have told me that Mary, when she became pregnant with Jesus, and I've talked to several pastors about this, was no more than 13 or 14 years old.
Yeah, 13.
And?
So?
And?
I guess that makes God a pedophile, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a little girl that's across the street from me. She's 14. She's a really good-looking little girl. And my little girl goes out and she comes over and plays with her sometimes. But I would never, ever, it would never occur to me. It has never occurred to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But you live in a different culture, so, all this is really cultural.
Well, yeah, it is. And so why is this person in Saudi Arabia saying, well, if we just put burqas over 2-month-olds and 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds, if that's going to change anything? These are religious people. They're delusional anyway. I think they are.
I think they're just all out of their minds, and they just can't deal with the functional reality, so they're just trying to point fingers and blame everybody else for their own failings.
Well, they are, because they're still living in the 8th century. I mean, most of them are.
Oh, essentially, yes.
I mean, I think about it. They're all tribal. They all fight against each other, and they're still living in. I mean, think about it. I was in Iraq. The Sunnis and the Shiites. When I was there, America had basically conquered that country, except for the war between the Sunni and the Shiite.
And it's still going on.
And it's still going on. You're exactly right. And let's move on.
Let's move
on.
The
next story is something I really found interesting, by the way. There's a group called Catholics United. I don't know if they're a liberal or conservative Catholic group. I assume they're a liberal Catholic group that want to prevent the retired, and I wanted to say former, but he's not a former cardinal, he's a retired cardinal, Mahoney out of Los Angeles, from participating in the upcoming papal conclave to elect a new pope due to Benedict XVI's retirement, and they actually have, and we've got it on our webpage. If you're a current or a former Catholic, you can go out there and sign the petition. It's a petition.
I signed it. I'm not a Catholic. There's no way to stop you.
Yeah, and there's no way to stop you. But it's interesting because last year, after Mahoney, quote unquote, retired, the Archbishop Gomez, removed him from all public action within the Catholic Church because of all the allegations that were coming up about how he covered up sexual allegations and how he covered up, priests from the 90s until today.
Oh, they're not allegations now that they've released all the paperwork. It's proven that he did this.
It's proven. And so Archbishop Gomez has said, no, you cannot participate in any public anything with the Catholic Church. So what do you think about this?
Oh, I think they're absolutely right. He should not have anything to do with it. He's already been stripped of all of his duties. He's retired, quote unquote, retired. The only reason he retired is because he knew
he was going to go to jail.
Yeah, that was it. So he's retired now, and like we talked about last week, he cannot be prosecuted for any of this because
I think he can. I actually think he can.
They can't because it's already past the statute of limitations.
No.
Absolutely.
No. I think he can be because it's a conspiracy.
The conspiracy statute of limitations is 5 years.
No.
It is.
In California, but not in the U.S. court. Not in the U.S. court.
Well, he would only be charged in California.
No, but I think he could be charged in the U.S. court.
He couldn't.
Because conspiracy in the U.S. court is, just like murder in any state court, is lifelong. A conspiracy to commit these acts. And that's where I think he should be charged. And,
it won't happen.
In the U.S. courts.
It won't happen.
Okay. So what do you
Catholicism is way too powerful. He's going to get away with it like the rest of them.
So you think this guy is going to be invited to the conclave to vote on the new pope?
I hope not. I hope everybody out there, Catholic or not, goes out and votes on this thing to say, keep this guy away from, personally, I don't give a crap what the Catholics do. The Catholics can have anybody vote on this if they want. They're a private organization.
I think it's an important story.
Oh, sure.
That this old guy, and I'm an old guy, sat out there for years and years and years and did nothing for child abuse.
Yeah, but how many of the other people who are going?
Wait. It's not just boy on boy, man on boy abuse. It's man on girl abuse as well.
Yeah.
I think that's unconscionable.
Of course it is.
And so this guy needs to go to fucking jail. I'm saying it right now. He needs to go to fucking jail.
But he won't.
And I'm cursing right now, and I apologize to our listeners for cursing.
But the problem is, how many other people who are going to vote on the new pope are in the same damn shoes, all of whom have hidden pedophile priests, all of whom have enabled pedophile priests? He's not the only one. It's not a story about this one guy who did all the evil in the world. It's this entire organization that has, as a whole organization, enables this across the planet.
Think about the whole Catholic Church in Ireland, which came out in the last, there was somebody that wrote something today I read. Well, the whole Catholic thing emerged before 2005. Well, you know what? That's bullshit because the Catholic Church in Ireland occurred after 2005. It occurred in the last 2 or 3 years, actually. And so these people need to go to prison. They need to go to prison. I'm giving you my opinion, Cephas. They need to go to prison. This Cardinal Mahoney, who covered up dozens, maybe hundreds, nobody knows.
Thousands.
Okay, thank you. Needs to go to prison and spend the rest of his life, let him sit in there and pray to his fucking God. This kind of thing really pisses me off, and so, but this kind of thing really gets me going. This guy needs to go away forever. Put him in a cell, 6x9, That's what they are for the rest of his life.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I got too carried away.
No, I mean, I agree with you. It's just, realistically speaking, that kind of thing is just never going to happen because, number one, especially in the U.S., religion gets an automatic out. They get a quote-unquote get-out-of-jail-free card because they're religion. So you're never going to get, and plus the fact that the Catholic Church has a ton of political clout. They can buy their way out of anything that they want to do.
Well, you know what needs to happen is the whole freaking Vatican needs to be disavowed by the UN as a country. They're not a country. They are 2 square miles?
Wow. What should happen and what will happen are two different things.
Yeah. Man. It's a crazy thing. Anyway, I'm sorry. I went too far.
No, there's no such thing as going too far. It's perfectly fine.
I am adamant on this. Is that priests, preachers, doesn't matter, because there's lots of preachers out there who have done evil things with children, male and female. Go to jail. Go directly to jail.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I absolutely agree with you. I think all of these people need to spend the rest of their lives rotting behind bars. But the reality is that's just not how the world works, especially not how the United States works right now. Religion gets away with murder, often literally. And I don't really know how we're going to change that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I'm just being realistic about the whole thing.
I'm ready to move on. Go ahead.
All right, well, let's move on then. A Tibetan monk has lit himself on fire this past week, becoming the 101st Buddhist monk since 2009 to voluntarily burn himself to death in protest of China's political control over Nepal. The Dalai Lama has been in self-imposed exile in India, and Buddhist monks throughout Nepal are demanding a loosening of religious control and a return of their spiritual leader. However, is this supposed to be a rational way of getting these changes made? After all, more than 100 people are now dead in just a few years, and nothing has changed. Isn't the very definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? I can admire the dedication of these people. You certainly would never see this kind of thing among most theists, no matter what their justification. But isn't this exactly what fanaticism is? What do you think?
Yeah, it is fanaticism. I mean, let's get this straight. China invaded Tibet, okay, in the 50s. Late 50s. They took over that country. The Dalai Lama, he was a little boy at the time, was secreted out to some other place, India, wherever, okay, because they believe he is the reincarnation of whatever, going back. But before that, Tibet was the most oppressive country in the world. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
They were the most oppressive country to women, to men, to everybody. They were the most oppressive country to everybody. Now, I'm not saying that China taking over that country was a good thing. What I'm saying is what the Dalai Lama puts out there is going, oh, blah, 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 yada, 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 I'm a great guy and whatever. Yeah, fuck you. You're a misogynist. You're a rape enabler. And he is. And you are a slave master. That's what he is. I'm sorry. That's what I believe, because I've done plenty of research on this to know that the takeover of China to Tibet was not like the poor Tibetans, they were just sitting there praying. No, they weren't. They were oppressing. Those lamas were oppressing their people. Now, I'm not saying the Chinese are any better. Please don't take that wrong. But what I'm saying is this bullshit we've been hearing from people like, actors about Tibet, the people in Tibet are so oppressed. No, they're not.
Well, you got to remember that when somebody does it to you, it's oppression. When you do it to somebody else, it's justice. Come on.
Well, yeah, that's true. But when you look at the statistics, actually from the UN, Tibet before the Chinese invaded, one of the most oppressed groups of people on the planet. And that's from the UN. And I don't really trust the UN, by the way.
Yeah, I don't either. But, I mean, I'm not even arguing with that. I don't think that it was a good situation before. I don't think it's a good situation after. My question is, do we really think that lighting yourself on fire is going to change the world?
Oh, of course not. And these guys have done this. I mean, come on, man. I was a teenager during the 60s and watched on the nightly news with Huntley Brinkley. That may be before your time.
No.
Videos of Buddhist priests in Vietnam lighting themselves up. Okay, you're stupid.
Well, that's essentially what exactly do they think they are honestly going to accomplish by lighting themselves on fire?
Well, what do Buddhists believe? Think about it. What do Buddhists believe?
Well, they think they're going to come back as something better.
No. They don't. That's absolutely wrong. That's an absolutely wrong belief. Buddhists believe that if they in this life attain the whatever, the highest level, then they will be gone from this life.
Well, that's true, but I don't think people who are
Hindus. It's Hindus that believe.
No, but it's also Buddhists. Buddhists certainly do believe in rebirth. Whether you come back as an animal or a ghost or whatever it is that you come back as, their ultimate goal is to get to the point where they're reborn into heaven, into some kind of a godless heaven. In order to be reborn in a better position each time, they need to refrain from doing anything that's harmful to the body. They need to do things that are generous and kind and loving and compassionate and wise. Things that certainly I don't think any of these monks that are on fire can really achieve.
It's Hindus that believe that I can, come back as a better person or a lesser person, depending on my life.
Yeah, but Buddhists, I don't think torching yourself is going to make you achieve nirvana or whatever.
No, it is what they think. It is what they believe.
Well, all right, then they haven't.
Trust me, I've studied this for years. Because it's an interesting subject for me. Is that these people believe that, they can, die tomorrow, naturally or whatever, and they're going to go to their vision of nirvana.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Well, yeah, if they earn it, and I don't think this is how they're going to earn it. That was my point.
So what are we going to do about this? So what do we have to do about people?
Well, my question is, 100 people in the past 3 years, they've already torched 100 monks. How long till they run out of monks? I mean, there's got to be a point.
There's thousands and thousands.
Well, no. All right, there's 1.2 million Buddhists in Nepal. Now, how many of those Buddhists fit into the monk category? Can't be that many. Probably a couple thousand.
No. I would guesstimate because I've been in Nepal. I would guesstimate 200,000 to 300,000.
All right, well, fine. Whatever the number happens to be. How many of those people are going to be willing to light themselves on fire?
Everyone.
If everyone was willing to do it, why have only 100 done so?
Because they're trying to make a statement. Because they don't like the Chinese invasion.
Well, it's in the past 50 years.
What was that? 1959? The Chinese invasion. There are certain priests. There are priests that pray and get their knowledge, get their whatever from something that says, okay, light yourself on fire. Immolate yourself. I can't imagine that. Nobody in the West can. I mean, we're in the West. I mean, we can't imagine people sitting there, pouring gas on themselves and lighting themselves on fire. We can't imagine that because we are of a different culture.
Right.
Okay, but those people are of a different culture from us. And those priests in those mountain communities have a different thought. That they think that dying gets into not the next world, like what Christians believe, but to the next life. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, of course. And
if you've ever been there, you would understand that. Because in India, of course, everybody that dies, and I've seen people dead on the street. I've walked over dead bodies on the street in India, and those people actually believe that those dead bodies are going to come back as somebody else. Right. I don't. You don't.
No rational person does.
Yeah, but those people do.
Yeah.
Because it's 5,000 years. It's actually 5,000 years of indoctrination.
Well, then why do I think we should be going out to Nepal and handing out gas cans and lighters? Hey, the faster we take care of all these crazy people, the better. Hey, let's like line you up and just light you all up one by one.
It's an incredible thing. I mean, come on, man. Next year I'm thinking about going to India.
I have spent more than enough time in the third world, and I have no interest in going back.
Hey, I just want to go there because I am interested as a anthropologist. You know, I am interested in what they do and I'm a geophysicist and I'm a geologist. Yeah, well, I do all those things. I'm interested in the evolution of humankind, mostly.
I'm more interested. I don't really give a damn where we came from. I'm more interested in where the hell we're going.
Well, we're going nowhere. You know?
Not if we keep having this stupid religion crap hanging around.
What do we do about this, Cephas?
You can't do anything about it. As far as I'm concerned, stupid people should just go off and be stupid and die, and hopefully people will get brighter.
You know I love you very much, right? You know I love you very much. But you're like one of the most cruel people I've ever met. But I love you very much.
Responsible for themselves, and if you're stupid, you deserve what you get.
Yeah. Well, are you saying you're a social Darwinist?
No, I'm saying I'm a realist. I'm saying people, if they're stupid, and most of these people are stupid on purpose, you deserve what comes of it. You get what you have coming to you because you earned it.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? You deserve what you get. I mean,
these people.
Come on. Wait. Let me tell you about some things. Since you were a kid, you're a few years younger than me. Man, I have been in so many countries fighting wars in Central America, mostly. So did I get what I deserved from that?
I don't know. Did you go do something stupid?
Oh, I got shot. I got stabbed. I killed a lot of people.
Well, then possibly.
And now, are you making me responsible for that?
Well, people who put themselves into those situations, nobody bundled you up, stuck you on a plane.
No. You're equivocating.
No.
Yes, you are. You're equivocating. Yeah, come on, say it. I'm an evil bastard. Yes, I am.
Okay.
I know I'm an evil bastard.
All right, then.
And I killed people in multiple countries and multiple situations. Did I want to do that? No. But please, Cephas, don't equivocate.
I'm not equivocating at all. I'm just being really honest about it. Now let's just put this in a completely generic situation, not aimed at anybody or anything. Somebody in some random country who goes out and kills a bunch of people in the line of military duty, who signed up for the military, who picked up that gun, who pulled the trigger. You can't really point fingers and say, well, it's somebody else's fault that you did something. No, you signed up for it. You did it. Nobody was holding a gun at your head. Maybe the enemy was, but nobody on your side was holding a gun at your head and saying, you have to do this or else. You are doing it because you've made choices to do things, and when you make choices, there are consequences to your choices. That's all I'm saying. There's no equivocation whatsoever. If you want me to feel sorry for these people who have idiotic...
No, I don't want you to feel sorry for anybody.
If these people are going to have what are essentially idiotic beliefs, which they do, and I don't care what their culture is. I'm not arguing about it's their culture, it's their beliefs, or it's how they were indoctrinated, or how they were raised, or anything like that. If these people are going to have idiotic beliefs and take idiotic actions based on those beliefs, including lighting themselves on fire for a pointless cause, which their death will have no point whatsoever in solving, then I don't feel sorry for them.
I don't either. I don't feel sorry for them either.
And that's the whole point.
Sorry.
I feel zero sympathy for them.
I really do. I'm with you. I feel no sympathy. Even though that made the mainstream media for some reason, I can't imagine why, this guy, poured whatever on himself and lit himself on fire.
Okay. get the marshmallows, guys. And the liberal media makes a huge deal out of it because anybody who dies is automatically a bad thing. Guess what? There's 7 billion people on this planet. Losing one or two stupid ones isn't gonna hurt anything.
Well, the whole thing is like we were talking about earlier, the Tibetan thing. This was the most, from my reading, and maybe you've read something different than me, this was the most oppressive regime.
No, I agree with you. I
mean, before the Chinese invaded. I'm not saying the Chinese are great people. By the way, please don't take that. But this was the most oppressive regime in northern China, and so the Chinese, the Red Army, came in there and took it over. And yeah, they killed a lot of people. They murdered a lot of people. Yeah, they were bad guys. Okay?
Yeah, they were.
But I'm going to give some credit here, okay? They freed up the society to some degree. I'm going to give them some credit. The society they took over was very oppressive. And all of you liberals that want to debate that with me, here I am.
Yeah, they can debate with both of us. All they have to do is comment on the blog. All they have to do is send us email, send us Twitter, whatever. We're always happy to talk about this kind of stuff.
Please debate me on this, because all the Chinese out there wanted to suppress their religion, and their religion was oppressive to women and children and
religion
whoever.
By its very nature is oppressive.
Bingo. Thank you, Stephens.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our last story.
Okay, our last story. And man, we've gone on and on and on here. There's a city in Maryland.
It's Baltimore, actually.
Okay, well, I was going to let you say that.
It just did.
That paid $585,000. This is for the laughs, folks. $585,000 to an outside consulting group to tell them how they can save money. $585,000, Stephens.
Oh, yeah. The problem is this is not an uncommon story. Lots of cities do this. And it's stupid, but this is normal.
This city is millions of dollars in debt.
Over the next 5 years, $750 million in shortfall.
Thank you. Yeah. And they're spending they're spending $585,000.
And I'll bet you that the people that they paid to that did not come up with a solution for their $750 million debt.
It's a shame. And this is what we're talking about, folks, is your community out here, your city, your county, your state. What are they spending money on? Are they spending money on how do we save money? Why don't they just cut?
Well, the funny thing about this story is Baltimore, once they got the report on how to save money, they had to hire a new employee at $100,000 a year to implement the plan.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So we're at $685,000.
I mean, what is going on here? I mean, again, this is, for most of us, this is just a city on the East Coast that we don't care about. But it's going to happen in your district.
If it hasn't already.
Yes, exactly. I think it's important. I think it's important to discuss. That's why I threw it in there as a kind of comedy thing, because it's so funny to me that these people would pay almost $600,000, $585,000 for them to tell the county how they should spend their money.
Well, my question is, if they've already got all these people on their payroll, don't they have anybody on the payroll who can do any kind of forecasting?
No, they can't.
Why not?
That's the thing. Is that there was a person there in the story, as you'll see in the link, said, well, we only do 3 year out, and we hired these people to do 10 years out.
Okay, then why don't you just do 10 years out? You're already on the payroll.
I agree. I don't know. Well, again, we're talking about government employees, aren't we?
Oh, most of them who are in unions and don't want to actually.
Anyway, that was I put that in there as a holy shit thing. A county in Maryland, in Baltimore, paid $585,000 to tell them, well, you need to downsize.
Well, I'll make it real easy. You hire me, pay me $1,000. I'll tell you the same thing.
Oh, okay, I'm done. This thing freaked me out. And that's why I brought it up here.
And they wonder why we're in trouble.
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to...
This is the main event.
We talked about this to some degree before, but I think it's about time we got it out of the way once and for all. There are people out there who throw around the concept of rights, and far too many of them seem to think these things are magical, universal things that just float around in the ether and apply to anyone and everyone across the board just because they want them to. However, if we really look at what rights are from a rational, objective, evidence-based perspective, it makes no sense whatsoever to see them in that manner. Today, I think we're going to take a look at what rights are, where they come from, and how they're justified.
I think you're wrong, and you and I, as you know, disagree on this to some degree.
Now, wait a minute. Before you get going, let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. There are really two competing theories of rights, I suppose you could call it. You have the natural rights side, which is largely pushed by some libertarians. And I know you consider yourself a small L libertarian, so don't get me wrong, it's not all libertarians, but it certainly is a big chunk of them. That's actually called either philosophical libertarianism or deontological libertarianism. And in fact, deontological libertarianism is the official form that is supported by the U.S. Libertarian Party. In order to join their party, you have to sign an oath that states that you agree to be bound by and agree to this particular philosophy. It's not something that you can just throw away. It's a major part of a major political party. Essentially what it says, in essence, the concept of natural rights, it goes back to a couple of philosophers such as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Thomas Paine. There's actually a bunch of those, but I think those are the major three. But what it argues is that there are a set of rights that every single person has, every person on the planet, no matter where they live, what culture they live in, etc., that also apply throughout all time and space, and that by definition, these rights are inalienable. That means they cannot be taken away from you fundamentally, even if you're not allowed by the culture, by your surroundings, etc., to use these rights. And the fact is, this is not a logical or rational position to hold. It's purely a moral position based on emotion. It's essentially what they want to be true in the world, so they're simply declaring that this is what's true. Now, the one thing I notice about these is it looks an awful lot like religion. It really does. These are people who are taking something that makes them feel emotionally good and declaring it to be factually true. Therefore, I'm going to declare that this is what is actually true.
There are no such thing as natural rights, but there are some things that's called legal rights.
Oh, sure. But those are things that people came up with. I'm talking about people who say these rights exist. Let's just throwing out slavery. The natural rights advocates say that everyone has a right to be free. No one should ever be enslaved. And while on an emotional level I agree with them, the fact is there are slaves in the world. But these are people who are saying that American slavery should never have happened because black people magically had the right to be free even if they were not free. And that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Because, as you know, and you know this for a fact, there's slavery in other countries in this world.
Absolutely.
And so there's no natural right amongst these societies for these people, whoever they enslave, to be free.
Well, the point that we were making was that slavery does exist worldwide, but the natural rights advocates, they think that slavery is just wrong across the board, that everybody has the right to be free, that the slaves in America, when we had slavery, they had a right to be free, and even though they could not exercise that right, they still had it.
Well, and yeah, I agree, and slavery still goes on. And in fact, you can look at East Africa, and I can't really think of the countries right now. Off the top of my head. But there are people, because it's a tribal society, that one tribe conquers another tribe, and they still do this after thousands of years, and then sell people off as slaves to other countries, as a matter of fact. And not to put too fine a point on it, and I'm going to bring religion into this a bit, but the Muslims in East Africa, up until, and maybe even including the early 20th century, were big on this.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, where do you think America got most of their slaves? We didn't go over there and round them up. We went over there. We found people who are only too happy to just sell off their neighbors.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Oh, no, I don't think
it's a bad thing. But that was their cultural narrative. Right. And that's what we need to understand is in different societies, different cultures, the narrative is different, and we cannot place I'm going to put it specifically, American cultural norms on every other society. For instance, we already know, and we've talked about this before, that libel laws are different in different countries. For instance, I can call you a stupid son of a bitch, in an article that I write for a newspaper in another country. Like our neighbor Canada, for instance. You could take that and go to, Canada actually has a board there for that. I can't remember what it's called right now, where you could take that and you can sue me for calling you that. Where in the United States, and not so much.
Yeah, because we have different sets of rights here than they have in Canada, or they have in the UK, or they have in Africa, or they have in Russia, or China, or wherever.
Yeah, and so, but what I want to disagree with you on is overall libertarianism. Because, yeah, as you said, I'm a small L libertarian. And I think that actually, you're probably going to disagree with me on this, that Goldwater, because you and I both agree we're Goldwater conservatives.
Right.
I think that he was probably a closet libertarian. Well, I think he does because he was small government. He wanted people out. He wanted government out of people's homes and bedrooms. And now, where I disagree with the large L libertarians is on drug policy and certain other things.
Well, I disagree with them on a lot of things. But you have to remember that libertarian, like conservative, like liberal, is just a label. And there's an awful lot of people who have completely different and often vastly opposing views who fall under that label or who adopt that label. So if I say, I disagree with the libertarians, that doesn't mean I necessarily disagree with every single person who sticks the libertarian label on their forehead, because let's face it, libertarians go everywhere from some pretty authoritarian people to anarchists.
Well,
outright crazy anarchists.
Well, think about the Ayn Rand people.
I think they're nuts.
I think they're nuts as well. Even though I read as a teenager Atlas Shrugged, and I loved that book. It's like, I don't know if you ever read it.
I've read it all. Yeah.
900 pages or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love that book. And it, as a 15 or 16-year-old, it shaped me to some degree, okay? But as I grew older, I realized that Rand was wrong on so many levels. Now, and people have to understand about her. She was a refugee from the Bolsheviks in Russia in the 20s. And so she came from a place of, I think she was in a middle class environment before the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. Then went through the Bolshevik Revolution, in which all her privileges and everything else were taken away. And so she just became another person on the street, and she didn't like that. And that's why she wrote her books that way. And that's why she had a great influence, as a matter of fact, on, believe it or not, on many U.S. economists about how capitalism should work, objectivism, whatever that means. I could never figure out what she meant by objectivism. Can you explain it to me?
No, but I can throw in this. There are 2 novels that can change a bookish 14-year-old's life, The Lord of the Rings and Atlas Shrugged. One is a childish fantasy that often engenders a lifelong obsession with unbelievable heroes, leading to an emotionally stunted, socially crippled adulthood, unable to deal with the real world. The other, of course, involves orcs.
Anyway, she influenced people like Milton Friedman.
Right.
And Milton Friedman was actually a member of her inner circle at some point. And this guy was the head of the Fed in the United States to set monetary policy. Do you actually want those kind of people there?
Not particularly, no.
No. I don't either. But he was actually the head of the Fed for a long time. What I want to see as a small L libertarian is the government leave me alone.
Right. So you have to remember that a lot of the people who started out being part of the conservative Republicans, as soon as the Democrat, liberal, Southern Democrats came in and took over, kind of abandoned the party. And they went off and they joined the Libertarians because it was really the only option they had. So a lot of the people who used to identify themselves as conservatives now identify themselves as libertarians. It's not that they've changed. They've just changed their label.
And yeah, I think that's true. And I haven't changed my label. I'm still a conservative, by the way. But I have this small L libertarian leanings in that I can't identify with the Democratic Party.
No, I can't either.
Because they're all about something else. They're all about, giving. I saw a cartoon today at work where there is a cartoon of Obama and America. America is this little girl, and Obama is saying, "I'll take care of you." And on the back of the little girl, the cartoon said, "I like free stuff."
That's essentially what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and we can't do that.
Right. Well, I was actually having a discussion with somebody earlier today, and, I was discussing the difference between the neocons and conservatives, and they were going, well, the fact is, America just doesn't want conservatism anymore. And I said, yeah, of course they don't, because we raised at least one, perhaps more generations of people who think that getting out of bed in the morning is enough for the government to give them a check. You actually have to work when you're a conservative.
Yeah, I agree. It's abominable to me to see that, remember the 99 weeks?
Yeah.
It's now gone to 150 weeks.
Yep.
Of unemployment insurance. And, we're in a bad economy, and I feel for everybody. I'm lucky. I feel lucky to have a job, okay? I am. And I feel for those people. But 150 weeks, you know what? If I get laid off, 150 weeks, holy cow. Am I going to look for a job?
Well, I would, because I wouldn't get anywhere remotely close to what
I would look for a job. But, I'm still getting paid, right?
Right.
For basically 3 years while I'm looking for a job.
Yeah, and if you talk to the liberals, they think you have a right to get paid, probably not even for 150 weeks, forever.
Well, as far as like Nancy Pelosi said, that unemployment and food stamps are good for the economy.
No,
what?
There's a report that came out today that in California, only 55% of people who are eligible for food stamps are signed up for it, and that if everybody who qualified for food stamps would go out and get food stamps and spend that money, it would help the Californian economy.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. I wish I was, but that's the way they think.
That's an incredible thing, because it's not that much money. What are food stamps? I know it varies state to state, but maybe $100 a week or $150 a week or something. I really don't know.
But they've made the qualifications so low that almost anybody can qualify. And hey, that's billion, and it is. They're talking about billions of dollars from the federal government. Where the federal government's getting this money, I don't know, but that will get pumped into the state economy.
Well, yeah. Okay, let's go there. What does that mean? So I get, what do they call it? It's basically a charge card.
Yeah. From
the federal government, from the state, actually, that the federal government subsidizes. And I could spend X dollars a week. What we found where I live, here in Arizona, that the state is putting a kibosh to, is that, here's the funny thing. People are going to casinos.
Strip clubs, yeah.
And spending that money.
And the strip clubs are putting in ATMs in front so that people can just take money out and stuff them in the G-strings of strippers.
Yeah. And so what do we do about this?
Well,
I mean, what do the taxpayers, because it's not just, I mean, you're in California, I'm in Arizona. Okay, so 2 different states, 2 different sets of laws on how things go on. But what do we do as national taxpayers?
Well, we have to completely overhaul the welfare laws. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Didn't we do this in 96?
The problem is that we hand these people credit cards and say, here, go spend this. But we really don't put any serious controls on what they can spend it on. And every time we suggest that we ought to do that we ought to stop these people from going to casinos, we ought to stop these people from going to strip clubs, all the poor advocates come out and go, oh, well, you can't stop them from doing that. Fuck yes, we can. We're paying the bills. It'll never happen, unfortunately.
These people are thinking that these are their rights.
Exactly.
To go buy their smokes, their beers, their alcoholic beverages of choice.
Right.
Go to whatever their strip clubs, whatever. What do we do as a society? I'm talking American society.
Well, we have to care, for one, and I don't think most people do, because most people have their hands out. Most people don't work for anything. Most, the 47% that don't pay any taxes at all and are on the government dole.
This brings me back to the cartoon I saw today.
Yeah.
I like free stuff.
That's it.
I mean, how much can the government provide? And this comes back to, again, our natural rights versus legal rights thing. It really does. It really does. I know people think we're wandering. We're not wandering.
No, we're actually on topic for once.
We are actually on topic here. But you have the right in the United States, if you're a citizen or a green card, a visa person in the United States, you have the right for certain things under the Constitution of the United States. Beyond that, nothing.
Yeah, well, just to expand on that, this is something that comes up a lot when you're talking about it, like illegal immigration, where people from Mexico, for example, will come to the U.S. and expect everything to be done in Spanish for them. Now, if you, even legally, immigrated to Mexico or Spain or Poland or whatever, and expected them to do things in English for you because you're too damn lazy to learn their native language, they'd laugh at you.
Well, let me give you a perfect example, because I live right on the border. I go into Home Depot, I go into Lowe's for stuff, for fix up my house. It's in English and Spanish. And I say, why? Why is this? When I lived in Colorado, by the way, which is 800 miles north, it was in English and Spanish.
Oh, it is here too?
And I'm like, why? Why is this in English and Spanish? Because this is America. Our language is English, American English, but English.
Yeah, well, I'll do you one better, because about a year ago, somebody opened up a electronics retailer. It's kind of like Best Buy, but it's not English and Spanish. It's Spanish. You walk in there, there's not one sign in the place that has any English words on it. Nobody in the place speaks English. All the clerks only speak Spanish.
Have you ever been to Canada, specifically
sure.
Like Montreal?
Yes.
Okay. And I have some friends that live there, by the way, and they're Canadian. They speak English and French, and their children speak English and French. But if you go to Montreal, pretty much, I'm trying to think, because it's been a couple of years, there are no signs on any shops that I've ever been to that were in English.
Right, because they are officially... They're officially a French-speaking area.
Province.
It's not really a nation, but,
It's a province.
Yeah.
I think, holy cow. I have to come up here and learn how to speak French. And that brings me back to what we're talking about English and Spanish. That's a divided country, right?
Oh, sure.
Because you have one province that's controlled by French-speaking people, and the other provinces that are controlled by English-speaking. And they have a national government that must speak, because of this one province, English and French. That's horrible. What are we going to see here in the United States, for instance?
Well, I don't honestly care, because they have made that choice for themselves. And if that's the choice that they as a nation want to make, that's fine. It's up to them.
Well,
we haven't made that choice here.
Here's my question. In the future, probably long after we're dead, Cephas. What's going to happen here is that is there going to be in the Senate and the House an English-speaking debate and then a Spanish or some other language debate?
It's already the case in a lot of places.
Yeah, it is.
And, I mean, it's disgusting, but, I don't really see that there's anything that we can do about it at the moment because, we're being invaded slowly.
So what do we do about, people demanding, and you are on the net a lot. You're on the net a lot more than I am, about these people complaining about natural rights for everybody versus legal rights. So what can we do about this? What's our voice, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, people need to learn that just because they want something to be true, and that's essentially what natural rights are. It's, I wish this was true. It's very religious if you think about it. It's, it would make me feel really, really good for this to be true. Therefore, I'm going to wave my arms and say some magic words and say, well, now it's true. But these people need to understand that no matter how much they wish things were true, that every individual group, every society, every country, every whatever, has a right to decide for itself what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that's essentially what rights are. Rights are just people in particular groups who've decided what is acceptable.
And I agree with that because every nation is different. I was in Iraq. I'm stating that up front so everybody knows. You cannot impose your values on another country. If I learned anything from my 13 months in that hellhole, that's what I learned, is that I cannot impose my values on other people.
But so many people, and this goes, it's not just the libertarians who do it, it's the liberals. I see that so often where they'll say, these people are being abused. We did this when we were talking about, we were doing a news story a couple shows ago about somebody in another country who's being held on blasphemy charges, and the liberals are coming out in droves going, well, it's horrible, this person has free speech.
Oh, yeah, the guy in Iran.
Where the hell did you get the idea that in Iran this guy has free speech? You're just wrong.
Yes, and again, this person, the Egyptian guy.
There's a couple of cases out there.
Yeah, there's a couple of cases where this happened. And it's like, excuse me, the Iran guy was an American citizen, a former Iranian, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, that was basically kicked out of Iran a few years ago, but then went back setting up churches, and of course that's against their state law, setting up Christian churches. And so he's been jailed. Right. And people are upset about that. Liberals are upset about that. I'm actually, yes, I'm upset about that, from a emotional point of view, that this guy is jailed for his religious beliefs, but he knew.
Yeah, he knew what was acceptable, and he ignored it, and he got caught, and he paid the penalty for it. Actually, he got 8 years in prison, which is a lot better than a bullet in the head. But the other case that people brought up was there was a guy, he's an Egyptian citizen.
Yes.
He went to Kuwait, and he was doing podcasting and blogging, atheist podcasting and blogging, which is against the law. And the liberals are screaming, oh no, he's in prison for doing this stuff. He did it. He's in jail because it's illegal. He doesn't have this magical right to do things just because you have that right here.
Yeah, and I agree. I've been in Kuwait, as you know. I've been in Kuwait 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. And it's a very restrictive society. Yeah, they try to be Western friendly, but they're not, because their laws are, 7th century,
right,
8th century. So this guy goes to Kuwait, starts blogging. This Egyptian goes there, starts blogging. I'm an atheist, blah, 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 yada, 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 and gets arrested. Oops. Maybe you shouldn't have done that in a theocratical state. Maybe you should have done that in Egypt, where which is actually, used to be more Western oriented. Or maybe you should have gone to Turkey, where it's more Western oriented.
Well, Turkey's changing, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately it is as well. It's becoming Islamist.
Yes.
That's a shame. But again, you don't have a right. I don't have a right to come to California and violate California's laws, even though the laws in Arizona might be different, and vice versa, right?
Absolutely.
And so what is this thing about natural rights? Yes, I agree there should be human rights around the world.
Yep.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen.
Forget about Star Trek.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, forget about Jean-Luc Picard and Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the whole world is all dancing around and everybody has food and everybody has clothes and.
Oh, we may eventually get to a point like that, but we're not at that point now, so we better stop pretending.
Well, if you remember a long time ago, I remember seeing these videos when I was a kid, of course, from the 30s about the 21st century, and we were going to have all these cars.
Yeah, where's our damn flying cars?
Yeah, where's our damn flying cars? All this stuff, and people were all going to be living in great housing, and it was all going to. I think it was the World's Fair in Chicago, 1936, and when I was a kid, much later, I watched these. They put them on TV about how
the newsreels and all that.
Newsreels about how we were all going to be different in the 21st century. Here we are in the second decade of the 21st century. And what do I see?
Yeah, we're not there yet.
I see racism. I see sexism. I see all the same things that we've all seen, that our parents saw, that our grandparents saw, go on back for however long you want to talk about it. How do you change people, Cephas?
Well, it takes a lot of time, People think that people are going to change over the course of a couple of years or a couple of decades. It's going to take centuries for some of these ideas to go away. It's going to take centuries for religion to go away, and that'll be the most wonderful thing. Eventually, I think it will.
I think it might. I'm not as optimistic as you are.
Well, the fantasy-based Christian Muslim kind of thing, that will go away. Because even in the last couple of decades, it's become very clear that most of those beliefs are just ridiculous. And the only people who are really still clinging to them are the old people who just have to die.
No, but
or
there's young people too.
There are some crazies, but there are fewer crazies with every generation. You'll eventually run out of crazies.
I hope so.
Well,
and so now
we'll just take them out and shoot them and be done with them that way. But I think we're incrementally getting better with each generation. But it does.
Well, yeah, we are because my grandparents were very much Church of Christ. My parents were none of the above, basically. My dad was in the military. And so my generation, now we're talking down, I'm into the third generation, into the fourth with my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, my grandparents were very, very, very religious. My parents were very religious up until about the time when I got rid of religion, and they kind of said, okay, and they didn't bother anymore. But I got stuck with religion for the first, 20 years of my life. My kids have never had to deal with religion. There's, and from here on out, I'm pretty positive that religion in my family is just going to be a non-issue. That's happening in a lot of families.
I think it is, and you know what? That's a great thing. Because, again, even in my family, it was a non-thing. If I didn't want to go to church, I didn't go to church.
Yeah.
I never, my dad never went to church. And that's how I used to get out of it.
No, my parents went to church
my dad would
every
say,
week.
Why do you go to church? And I'd go, well, Dad, you never go to church. Okay, fine. Move on.
Yeah.
And that's how it would be.
Well, that's how it should be. But, like with rights, how it should be, how you wish it was, that doesn't necessarily mean that is how it is, and all we can do is work towards something instead of just declaring that that's how it is.
Yeah, and so it comes back again to natural versus legal rights as far as what should be and what is. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing if everybody worshiped their god or gods and everybody got along and everybody had freedom. I'm thinking India in particular, if you've ever been to India. It's a horrible place to be, by the way.
I would, yeah. No, thank you.
And I've been there. But if everybody got along and everybody had all these rights and freedoms and could worship how they wanted in whichever country, I'm all for that.
Yep. I'm good with that.
But that's not the case. And people need to understand what the difference is.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and move on.
You believe what?
No. Oh, no.
Hey, today we're going to be talking about, I cheated a bit. I cheated a bit in that I pulled some stuff off of Debunking Christianity. What we're going to be talking about today is scriptures, specifically from the Old Testament, that don't line up with reality.
Well, that's pretty much most of the Old Testament. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I want to get there, and next week I'll have my own scriptures I'm going to submit from the New Testament that don't line up.
Yeah, I figure next week let's go ahead and handle the whole resurrection story since we're coming up on Easter. I think that would probably be a good idea.
I think it's a wonderful thing. But there's a guy on Debunking Christianity. It's John Loftus's site, but he has several writers out there. He wrote his 5 top scriptures that didn't add up with reality. And his first one was the global flood of Noah.
That's my personal favorite.
I know it is, so I'm going to let you go with that one.
I could spend a month just talking about how ridiculous this whole concept is. In fact, way back, I wrote this massive discussion on just how laughable the flood is on a previous version of the blog. I really wish I still had that thing because it was probably a mini book. But everything from building the ark, which is bigger than any boat that's ever existed in the history of mankind, getting all the animals from around the world to the ark, and the difficulties there, the difficulties of fitting them on the ark, because we're looking at millions and millions of animals that would need to fit on the ark. The fact that the flood contains more water than exists on the planet by a couple of factors of magnitude.
1,000 times higher?
And
for the flood to happen. For the flood to happen, it would be 1,000 times higher.
Right. And the thing is, you get a lot of Christians who will kind of go, well, I'm going to rationalize my way around this and say, well, it was just a local flood. And a lot of people will point to the flooding of the Black Sea as a possibility. But if you read the book, this book that is supposed to be inerrant, it says the water covered the highest mountains. If it covers the highest mountains, it's not a local flood. It's a worldwide flood. You can't get around that.
Well, again, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, okay?
Feel free.
And again, these are desert people, writing about an event that happened many generations before they ever lived. Isn't it possible, because there are multiple flood stories in the Middle East?
Yes, there are.
Is that there was actually a flood story?
No, actually, there are multiple floods. If you go and you look at the archaeology, you will find, and let's look at
the Black Sea. Let's look at the Black Sea. I've recently done some research into this and read some articles onto the Black Sea, where in the Black Sea, on the shores of the Black Sea, 100 feet down, they have found artifacts of civilizations that lived there.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no doubt that flood actually happened. But the flood that happened there is not the flood described in the Bible.
Is it possible, again, being devil's advocate, that generations, and we're talking, because these archaeologists I'm thinking about are talking about 8,000 years ago.
Right.
Maybe as much as 10,000 years ago, that found these artifacts. That through generations, this story, the story of Gilgamesh comes up all the time.
Right.
Is that these stories propagated through civilizations, and so it became a worldwide flood.
Well, that's actually very likely. If you look at Joseph Campbell, he wrote a series of books called The Masks of God. And in one of those books, he talks about the flood story. And he goes into a lot of detail on where it comes from. We can look at all these different stories and find out what elements line up and what elements don't, and where these occur in the timeline, and we can trace where this myth went through a number of different peoples in that area.
And I want to be clear here. When we talk myth, I want to be clear here, we're talking global flood. Could there have been a local, regional flood?
There were lots of them.
That then transcended over time through stories, through songs and stories, to something to Noah's flood. As we all know, the Hebrews co-opted a lot of their stories from other cultures.
Oh, of course they did.
And we'll get into that in another podcast, by the way, because I have a lot to talk about.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I've got some very good friends, like Dr. David McDonald, who's an archaeologist, but he wrote a very detailed article a number of years ago where he detailed 6 to 8 different floods that they found in the Middle East that are most likely to be part of this big flood tradition that has grown up in the Middle East. The one thing that I always find funny about the biblical story is if you actually do your research, a huge portion of that story comes from India, where they have...
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Well, where the story in the Bible where Noah's son finds him naked and throws him out and gives all the land to his other sons, that story comes verbatim from a Indian myth or from a Hindu myth where
from the Aryans, by the way, which was 1,000 years before.
Right. We know it was long before the Hebrews even existed, where word for word, literally word for word, they lifted this story and dropped it into the Bible. And the only thing that changed were the names and the names of the places that he gave to his sons. Otherwise, it's the same story. And the Christians and the Jews are just so utterly ignorant of their own mythology, they don't understand where this stuff comes from.
Well, it becomes like what we were talking about recently on your blog, is that let me start with a conclusion: God exists. And now let me back up and give you all the evidence for that. I'm sorry, as a person that was raised in mathematics and science, no, that's not what you do. Come up with your hypothesis, turns into, based on facts that you can correlate and are peer-reviewed, a theory, and then, and only then, maybe, you can come up with a conclusion.
Right.
But theists do it backwards. God exists, therefore X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. That doesn't work for me.
Well, it doesn't work for anybody with a rational brain in their head.
And so this whole idea of Noah and the ark is completely, and what's really crazy to me, Cephas, is that there are people out there still looking for this, looking for the ark.
Oh, and every couple of years you'll find somebody who says, well, that looks vaguely ark-shaped. That must be it.
Okay, so the next one, you're going to love this one. 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep are sacrificed in 1 week.
They must have been busy.
Can you imagine this?
Well, I'm sure today we can do that in a modern-day slaughterhouse.
This is in 2 Chronicles 7, 1 through 10 in the Bible. Under, I think it was Solomon. 22,000 oxen. Have you ever seen 22,000 oxen? I'm kind of a country boy a little bit. I don't think I've ever seen 22,000 buffalo.
I'm sure I've seen pictures of it, but...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen pictures of it myself. But 120,000 sheep are sacrificed in a week? In a week. Now think about that. Because what did the Hebrews do to sacrifice? Of course, understand these had to be pure, right?
Right.
It couldn't be a white sheep with a little brown or black hair, tuft of hair. They had to be pure. Mm-hmm. The sheep had to be pure sheep. So 120,000 pure sheep. Holy crap. I mean, that thing just is, it's mind-boggling to me. And to do it in a week means that they had to do it, they had to kill, I don't know, like 1,000 every 5 minutes.
No, it's actually a lot worse than that. I did some of the math, and speaking about the oxen, they had to kill 3,667 per day. That calculates to 153 per hour, or 2.5 per minute. For the sheep, they had to kill 20,000 per day, 833 per hour, or 14 per minute. Of course, that does mean that they did not kill on the Sabbath, so we're only working this into a 6-day week. The math just doesn't add up. It's not like people are out there with machine guns going, let's sacrifice.
Well, no. But you know the way they did this, right? The ritual for a single person. I would bring to you, you're the priest, I bring to you this pure sheep or goat, and you would verify that it was a pure sheep or goat. And then you would cut its throat to kill it.
Well, that was usually more of a ritual than just that. There was, and then once you cut its throat, you had to drain the blood, and you had to do something with the blood, and yada, yada, yada. It wasn't something that could be done quickly.
No, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't something that could be done quickly. And so for the Bible to say that all of these animals were killed, 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep in 1 week, how does that work?
Well, it doesn't. But the one thing that people have to remember is that there's a lot of numerology involved in ancient Hebrew script.
It's interesting that you bring that up because the whole idea of numerology, I used to date a girl a long time ago in your land, Southern California. Numerology, according to her, I never investigated this, developed with the Hebrews, the Jewish people.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I mean, that was according to her, and she was not anti-Jew or anything. Don't get me wrong, because she was a numerologist. She believed in numerology. Of course, I didn't, but she stated to me, years and years ago, that was a thing developed out of the Jewish history, numerology.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very possible. There's a lot of things in Jewish mythology where they'll multiply numbers by something because it means something. Well, so it wouldn't surprise me if this is what happens in this case.
Well, here's the thing. Look at your birth date. Take your month, extract the 0 if there's a 0 in front of it, add the day. If there's a 0, extract the 0 from that. And the year, extract the 0 if there's a 0 for that. Add those together, okay? This is numerology. And then that number, okay, let's say it's 13. I'm just, I'm throwing it out there. Blah, blah, blah. So there's a 1 and a 3. So now you add those two numbers together, and you get a 4. And that's how numerologists determine what kind of person you are.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. And so we've wandered. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
My fault. Egypt endured 40 years as an uninhabited country. Now, you know what? I've read a lot of Egyptology, and I know they were invaded by the Hyksos and the Middle Kingdom and all that stuff, but Egypt was an uninhabited country.
Not quite so much.
For uninhabited country.
Yeah, this is just more numerology. Take the story of the Jews who are supposedly wandering around the desert for 40 years. It's another 40. 40 means something in Jewish mythology. The whole idea that they wandered around in this relatively small area for 40 years, when if you read forward in the Bible, where Mary and Joseph supposedly went from Palestine to Egypt to hide, and they did it in what, a month or two maybe?
Yeah, and that's like hundreds of miles.
It's not that far.
Well, but still, it's hundreds of miles, and if you're on foot or even with a caravan, it's still hundreds of miles. That to get from Palestine, think about it. You have to go up, over, and down to get to Egypt from where they were. I'm thinking about the geography of it.
Right.
And so it's hundreds of miles. So
okay.
Yeah, it's going to take several months to get there.
Right. So how do you explain 40 years?
Well, no. Egypt endured 40 years as an uninhabited country. That's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, but Egypt has never been an uninhabited country.
Well, no, it hasn't been. But this is, here it is. I'm going to read it to you from here. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will bring a sword upon thee, and cut off man, and beat out thee. And the land of Egypt shall be desolate and waste, and they shall know that I am the Lord, because he hath said, the river is mine, and I have made it. Behold, therefore, I am against thee, and against thy rivers, and I will make the land of Egypt utterly waste and desolate, from the tower of the Syene even until the border of Ethiopia. No foot of man shall pass through it, nor foot of beast shall pass through it. What do you think? This is in the Bible.
Well, just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it means anything.
Yeah, but again, let's go to church.
Let's not.
No. What I'm saying is, like, I would really love to go to church and go, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
They will ignore it.
Because that never happened. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, but what you're going to have is a whole bunch of apologists going, well, that's what the Bible says. We're going to now explain to you how it happened and then give you a different story that's not in the Bible.
Well, again, it comes back to the apologetics thing that, I glom onto what you say about apologetics a lot of times. Mostly. They come to a conclusion, and then they try and find facts to back them up. God exists. Oh, wait, here in the Bible it shows that God exists. Or here in archaeology it shows God exists. Well, archaeology doesn't actually prove God. It proves civilization.
Right.
And so, yeah, I kind of glom onto a lot of your blog posts on that, which are terrific, by the way, about that. That you cannot prove other than coming to the conclusion, which is a false dichotomy on how we do scientific research, on how we do even philosophical research.
Right.
Into anything. Okay, so you agree with me that Egypt was not desolate for 40 years.
No, it wasn't. I guess you could make there are probably areas of Egypt that you could go into to say, well, this area is desolate. But, you know what? There were times Egypt was in conflict. Between the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom, they were in conflict. Between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, they were in conflict. Between the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom, they were in conflict. So could that be the source of this? I don't know. There were many pharaohs. There was a lot of conflict in Egypt between the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. We don't know. But to say, 40 years desolate, well, that just didn't happen. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, the waters of Bethesda, and we're not talking Maryland. An angel came down to stir the waters of a pool in Jerusalem to miraculously heal whoever got there first. What do you think?
Angels or dicks?
Well,
well, seriously, when you look at the story, that's essentially the only conclusion that you can draw from this is we're going to have a contest, and the first person who can get into this pool is going to get healed. But you have, a disabled man who, because he's disabled, can't get into the pool, so he's left unhealed. Okay, angels are dicks.
Okay, but this was apparently because they've actually found, I've seen this on TV, by the way, on like the History Channel or somewhere, where they found this pool of Bethesda, and they've dug it out in Israel. So it is an actual place. Now, whether people came there to be healed by angels is another story. So what do you think about all this?
Well, it's just more mythology. I just think that the story...
Well, no, remember Jesus went to the pool of Bethesda, and there was a guy who was there that was a cripple. I can't remember the exact story. Maybe you can better than me. That couldn't get to the pool.
Right, that's what I was talking about. The guy who was too sick to get to the pool, and therefore didn't get healed. Angels are dicks.
But Jesus then healed him. But then Jesus did heal him.
Right, but that has nothing to do with the angel. Angels are dicks.
So we're going to have to talk about this again in another podcast about.
Yeah, because we're getting into New Testament stuff, and that's not really where we're at right now.
So we both agree that this whole thing, the waters of Bethesda, not the hospital in D.C.
Or the game company. But
is there a game company called Bethesda?
Of course.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Why don't you send me the goddamn links?
Yeah, they do all the Elder Scrolls games, Fallout. They're a huge, huge company.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just teasing with you.
Yeah, the more you look at these stories, more ridiculous the Bible actually becomes.
If you look at them parallel instead of vertically, if you look at the New Testament stories, if you look at the Old Testament stories, because in the Old Testament they repeat in some areas, not the same story, but they repeat, how Moses did this and Joshua did that.
They repeat the creation story.
Yeah, they repeat stories. If you look at them rationally, they don't make any sense. As we know, for instance, in the creation story, there are completely two different creation stories.
In different orders. But, of course, the second creation story in there is actually the earliest version.
Yeah, and I like the one with, it's not actually the Talmud description. Anyway, about Lilith.
Yeah.
That the first wife of Adam was actually named Lilith. And that's why there's two creation stories. Right.
Yeah, but you got to remember, you can't look at these things rationally because rationally it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So now Jesus' death made zombies walk around Jerusalem. Now, Cephas, I have to tell you, this is a thing. I was a Christian. I was like a jam it up your ass Christian, But I could never get over this thing.
Yeah, and we'll do this kind of as an introduction to what we're going to talk about next week, because we're really going to take this whole story apart.
Okay. And this thing is really blows me apart about. It always did. I'm talking years and years ago. I was a teenager. I was like, yes, and the people got out of their graves and walked around. And as I got older, of course, a little bit older, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm talking I wasn't even 20 years old when I thought, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then, of course, here we are in the 21st century. We see all these television shows and movies about zombies, and I'm going, zombies? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, crowds of people coming out of the graves.
Here's a question for you. Why isn't there anything written? I can understand that this person, Jesus, was executed on a cross as a criminal by the Romans, by the Jewish people. I could actually accept that possibly happened.
Yeah, okay.
But when we go into, the curtain was torn in the temple and the people got out of their graves and started walking around and saying, hey, Joe, what's going on, man? Give me a beer.
And there was a magical eclipse of the sun that nobody else on the planet noticed.
Exactly. That's the thing. Can I call myself a skeptic?
My question is, why doesn't everybody call themselves a skeptic? Christians will read this and just blindly believe it without thinking the common stuff that we came up with when we were kids, which is, this makes no sense at all. Why wouldn't these stories come up in all these other cultures? Why wouldn't anybody in Jerusalem write this stuff down, except this one story in this one book in the Bible?
Yeah, again, why is it that this is in the Bible and nobody, not even, I have 18 books. I told you about this privately, of the pre-Nicene fathers, fathers writings. Nobody talks about this.
Of course not. Well, I think even they recognized how stupid it was.
But why is this in the Bible?
Because by the time they got around to actually putting the Bible together, it was so far beyond, so far down history that these weren't even questions they were asking. They were just trying to construct a book, no matter what was in the book.
No. I disagree. They were trying to construct a mythology. Okay, I'm going to admit here. So there's going to be people, atheists out here that disagree with me, of course. I think the whole Jesus thing is a complete myth. I don't think that this person, I think that the whole Jesus thing is a maybe a conglomeration of several preachers in the Middle East in the early first century. But I don't actually think there was that person.
Oh, there definitely was never that person.
So thank you.
Well, no, the funny thing is, and I get this from Christians all the time, this comes from apologists all the time, is they will try to get you to admit that there may have been some real person in the Middle East from which a lot of this sprang. He may have come up with some of these ideas. He was basically a cult leader. But if you admit in any way, shape, or form that there could have been a person that provided some kernel of truth at the center of the Jesus myth, then you are admitting that the biblical Jesus who did all the miracles and rose from the dead was real.
Okay. So
screw you people.
So you're with me on Bart Ehrman's book from last year, right?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I love Bart Ehrman, by the way. I respect him as probably the most, as far as I'm concerned. He's the most respected New Testament theologian, and teaches out of UNC, and he's a great author, but he was wrong on the historical Jesus, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, no, he thinks the same thing. He doesn't think that Jesus, as it appears in the Bible, is real.
He does.
He does not believe that Jesus did miracles.
No.
That's the biblical Jesus.
He does believe that there was this guy called Jesus.
Well, we know there was no guy named Jesus because Jesus isn't a Hebrew name. It's a Romanization.
Well, it's a Yeshua.
Yes, that's better. There was no Jesus because there were no Jesuses.
But anyway, in his last book that I bought, and I read it extensively, he caught a lot of criticism on that about he was defending the historicity of Jesus. There's other scholars out there. It's a minority, I admit. I've read all their books, by the way, that believe that this person never existed.
Yeah. No.
That he was a conglomeration at most of many other, preachers.
Well, yeah, but Bart Ehrman thinks, and I agree with him, that there was probably a person who was at the center of the myths. That it was not just everything made up out of whole cloth, that there never was a Jesus, that there never was anything, that there was never a teacher, that there were never preachers, there was nothing. That's the other view, is that it's just a complete made-up myth. And that's very unlikely. It's very likely that there was somebody there, and all of these different mythic elements were draped over him after he died.
I disagree, and that's fine. I disagree. We could have another podcast on my evidence, my perceived evidence.
Well, there is no evidence. That's the thing.
Well, no. I mean, my perceived evidence that there was no person, and that this was a made-up religion. Just like, man, come think about it. There's a lot of made-up religions that you and I reject.
Well, we reject all religions.
Well, we reject all of them, but
I mean, the way that
still, you do you think that there was actually, and yeah, there was actually, according to certain people, a Siddhartha Buddha, 500 BC.
Yep. And there was, but a lot of the things that have risen up around him never happened. The same way there was a Muhammad. We know there was a Muhammad, but he never rode off to heaven on a winged horse.
Yeah, he was an illiterate merchant.
Right, and it's very likely that whoever played the role of Jesus was some illiterate teacher, and we know
think about it. They talk about Jesus as being somebody from Galilee.
The details don't matter. We're not talking about the details. The details could have been just stuck on later.
Sorry, man. I got to go with the details because I'm, science oriented.
Yeah, but if you're going to say that, then you have to say, well, because Muhammad didn't do all the things that the Quran says he did, therefore Muhammad didn't exist.
No. The difference is there were contemporaries with Muhammad.
Oh, I agree.
That actually wrote about him. Contemporaries. There were no contemporaries that wrote about Jesus.
No, you're right. There weren't, because he was a minor little pissant preacher.
Yeah, there were no contemporaries that wrote about him.
That's absolutely true.
So if we're going to worship a religion,
which we're not,
absolutely, thank you, brother, then we should be worshiping Islam, because Muhammad was an actual person.
Yeah, but nobody worships
it. I put my finger on that.
Nobody worships Muhammad. He's a prophet. He's not the God.
But wait. But I can actually put my finger on him because he's an actual historical figure. Where Jesus, I'm searching around here. Where do I put my finger on him?
Well, you couldn't put your finger on Muhammad anyway because he's kind of rotted away a long, long time ago. But it doesn't really matter.
You know what I'm saying?
It really is irrelevant whether he was real or not, because all the things that he taught and all the things that he believed and all the things that have risen up since his time are just ridiculous anyway.
Okay.
The religion has very little to do with whether he was a flesh and blood human being or not.
So how did this? I'm curious, and I'm doing some research on this, by the way. How did this religion arise? Oh, and I know the basics of it. It was political, but how did it arise?
Well, at the time there was pretty much a preacher there was a Messiah on every street corner.
No. I'm talking about in the 4th century, when it became, when Constantine decided that Christianity was a state religion. Wow.
Well, he got converted.
Could you imagine that today?
Yes, absolutely I can. Okay. 40 years ago, L. Ron Hubbard came up with a religion, and now millions of people believe stupid shit about Xenu. I can exactly believe what that happened.
No. But it's not a state religion.
If they had enough political
Could you imagine
yeah.
the President of the United States, forget about the current resident.
No, if the President of the United States had the kind of power that Constantine had, the kind of absolute power, and somebody converted Obama to Xenuism or Scientology or whatever.
Forget about Obama.
No, I'm just saying that if you had the kind of power that Constantine had, and you were a true believer in this religion, hell yes, you could go ahead and create that kind of a climate.
And that's what happened.
Oh, sure it is.
And so here we are.
And then we ended up spending hundreds of years of this church having this massive amount of political power that went around and killed anybody they didn't like. It's not hard to understand at all.
It is for me in a little bit, in a small way, because, of course, I didn't live back then. Well, actually I did. But anyway, it's hard for me to understand how, people can condemn others for things they can't prove.
Yeah, but that's not how religion works, unfortunately. I mean, I look at Christians today and say, how can you people be so damn stupid? But then again, there they are.
Well, because it comes to this. It's a conclusion before evidence.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Here we are.
It's people who want emotional well-being and emotional happiness over factual reality.
Okay. And we have really gone over our time.
That's all right.
I love discussing stuff with you because you're an interesting guy, and I really love discussing these things. And holy shit, I think I need to put on my own podcast of just me and you discussing shit. I think I'm going to do this.
All right.
If that's okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and just close up shop for the week. We're everywhere. There are links on our website to our iTunes, our YouTube, and our email, and our Twitter accounts. We invite people to comment and engage us in discussion and debate through tweets, comments, ratings, etc. If you like our show, tell someone. If you don't like our show, tell us. We can't improve unless you let us know. You want to say a goodbye?
Have a good evening.
Have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you again next Friday.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report with your hosts, Cephas and Out West. You can follow us on Twitter by following Bitchspot1 or JEH704. Visit our website at report.j